86DOS was an operating system developed and marketed by Seattle Computer Products for its Intel 8086-based computer kit. Initially known as QDOS, the name was changed to 86DOS once SCP started licensing the operating system in 1980. 86DOS had a command structure and application programming interface that imitated that of Digital Research's CP/M operating system, which made it easy to port programs from the latter. The system was purchased by Microsoft and developed further as MS-DOS and PC-DOS. Origins. 86DOS was created because sales of the Seattle Computer Products 8086 computer kit, demonstrated in June 1979 and shipped in November, were languishing due to the absence of an operating system. The only software which SCP could sell with the board was Microsoft's standalone disk BASIC 86, which Microsoft had developed on a prototype of SCP's hardware. SCP wanted to offer the 8086 version of CP/M that Digital Research had announced, but its release date was uncertain. This was not the first time Digital Research had lagged behind hardware developments. 2 years earlier it had been slow to adapt CP/M for new floppy disk formats and hard disks. In April 1980, SCPU signed 24-year-old Tim Patterson to develop a substitute for CP/M86. Using a CP/M80 manual as reference, Patterson modeled 86DOS after its architecture and interfaces, but adapted to meet the requirements of Intel's 8086 16-bit processor. For easy source-level translatability of the many existing 8-bit CP/M programs, porting them to either DOS or CP/M86 was about equally difficult. At the same time, he made a number of changes and enhancements to address what he saw as a CP/M's shortcomings. CP/M cached file system information in memory for speed, but this required a user to force and update to a disk before removing it. If the user forgot, the disk would be corrupt. Patterson took the safer but slower approach of updating the disk with each operation. CP/M's pip command, which copied files, supported several special file names that referred to hardware devices such as printers and communication ports. Patterson built these names into the operating system as device files so that any program could use them. He gave his copying program the more intuitive name copy. Rather than implementing CP/M's file system, he drew on Microsoft's standalone disk BASIC 86's FAT file system. By mid-1980, SCP advertised 86DOS, priced at $95 for owners of its $1,290 8086 board and $195 for others. It touted the software's ability to read Z80 source code from a CP/M disk and translate it to 8086 source code, and promised that only minor hand correction and optimization was needed to produce 8086 binaries. IBM interest. In October 1980, IBM was developing what would become the original IBM personal computer. CP/M was by far the most popular operating system in use at the time, and IBM felt it needed CP/M in order to compete. IBM's representatives visited Digital Research and discussed licensing with Digital Research's licensing representative Dorothy Kildall, who hesitated to sign IBM's non-disclosure agreement. Although the NDA was later accepted, Digital Research would not accept IBM's proposal of $250,000 in exchange for as many copies as IBM could sell, insisting on the usual royalty-based plan. In later discussions between IBM and Bill Gates, Gates mentioned the existence of 86DOS, and IBM representative Jack Sams told him to get a license for it. Creation of PC-DOS. Microsoft purchased a non-exclusive license for 86DOS from Seattle Computer Products in December 1980 for $25,000. In May 1981, it hired Tim Paterson to port the system to the IBM PC, which used the slower and less expensive Intel 8088 processor and had its own specific family of peripherals. IBM watched the developments daily, submitted over 300 change requests before it accepted the product and wrote the user manual for it. In July 1981, a month before the PC's release, Microsoft purchased all rights to 86DOS from SCP for $50,000. It met IBM's main criteria. It looked like CP/M, and it was easy to adapt existing 8-bit CP/M programs to run under it. Notably thanks to the trans command, which would translate source files from 8080 to 8086 machine instructions. Microsoft licensed 86DOS to IBM, and it became PC-DOS 1.0. This license also permitted Microsoft to sell DOS to other companies, which it did. The deal was spectacularly successful, and SCP later claimed in court that Microsoft had concealed its relationship with IBM in order to purchase the operating system cheaply. SCP ultimately received a $1 million settlement payment. Intellectual property dispute. When Digital Research founder Gary Kildall examined PC-DOS and found that it duplicated CP/M's programming interface, he wanted to sue IBM, which at the time claimed that PC-DOS was its own product. However, Digital Research's attorney did not believe that the relevant law was clear enough to sue. Nonetheless, Kildall confronted IBM and persuaded them to offer CP/M86 with the PC in exchange for a release of liability. Controversy has continued to surround the similarity between the two systems. Perhaps the most sensational claim comes from Jerry Pournelle, who claims that Kildall personally demonstrated to him that DOS contained CP/M code by entering a command in DOS that displayed Kildall's name as of 2006 update. Pournelle has not revealed the command and nobody has come forward to corroborate his story. A 2004 book about Kildall says that he used such an encrypted message to demonstrate that other manufacturers had copied CP/M, but does not say that he found the message in DOS. Instead, Kildall's memoir pointed to the well-known interface similarity. Patterson insists that the 86DOS software was his original work, and has denied referring to or otherwise using CP/M code while writing it. After the 2004 book appeared, he sued the authors and publishers for defamation. The court ruled in summary judgment that no defamation had occurred, as the book's claims were opinions based on research or were not provably false. Edlin. By 1982, when IBM asked Microsoft to release a version of DOS that was compatible with a hard disk, PC-DOS 2.0 was an almost complete rewrite of DOS. So by March 1983, very little of 86DOS remained. The most enduring element of 86DOS was its primitive line editor, Edlin, which remained the only editor supplied with Microsoft versions of DOS until the June 1991 release of MS-DOS 5.0, which included a TUI-based editor. MS-DOS editor based on QBasic. Edlin can still be used on contemporary machines, since there is an emulated DOS environment up to Windows 8 versions. Disk formats. Seattle Computer Products 86DOS supported the FAT12 file system on a range of 8.0 and 5.25 floppy disk drives on S100 floppy disk controller. Hardware manufactured by Chrome Co., Tarbell Electronics and North Star Computers. The Western Digital FD1771-based Chrome Co. and Tarbell boards supported one-sided single-density soft-sectored drives. A Tarbell double-density board utilizing the FD1791 was supported as well. At a later stage, SCP offered advanced floppy disk controllers like the Disk Master series themselves. 86DOS itself did not take advantage of a FAT-ID, byte or BPB to distinguish between different media formats. Instead, different drive letters were hard-coded to be associated with different physical floppy drives, size and densities, that is, depending on its type. A disk had to be addressed under a certain drive letter to be recognized correctly. Two logical format variants of the 86DOS 12-bit FAT format existed: the original format with 16-byte directory entries and the later format with 32-byte directory entries. Only the second one is logically compatible with the FAT12 format known since the release of MS-DOS and PC-DOS. MS-DOS still cannot mount such volumes, as in absence of a BPB it falls back to retrieve the FAT ID in the FAT entry for cluster 0 to choose among hard-coded disk geometry profiles. In all formats of a volume formatted under MS-DOS which would otherwise be supported by both systems, this ID is located in the first byte of logical sector 1, since MS-DOS assumes a single reserved sector. Under 86DOS, the reserved sector's area is significantly larger, and therefore the prototypical FAT ID 0xFE is located elsewhere on disk, making it impossible for MS-DOS to retrieve it, and even if it would, the hardwired disk profile associated with it would not take this larger reserved sectors region under 86DOS into account. CP/M2 floppy media were readable through RDCP/M. 86DOS did not offer any specific support for fixed disks by itself, but third-party solutions in form of hard disk controllers and corresponding I/O system extensions for 86DOS were available from companies like Tallgrass, making hard disks accessible similar to superfloppies within the size limits of the FAT12 file system. Various OEM versions of MS-DOS 1.2x and 2x supported a number of similar 8.0 FAT12 floppy disk formats as well, although not identical to those supported by 86DOS. Disk formats supported by one of the last versions developed by Tim Paterson at Microsoft. MS-DOS 1.25 for the SCP Gazelle computer with SCP controller or Chromemco 16 FDC controller. In 1984, Seattle Computer Products released an OEM version of MS-DOS 2.0 for the SCP-S100 computer with SCP-500 disk master floppy controller. It added support for 5.25 DD1S and DD2S FAT12 formats and supported the older formats as well, although possibly with some of the parameters modified compared to MS-DOS 1.25.